The first real prayer I ever prayed, I was 24 years old and I thought I had just lost everything. And I didn't know what I was doing. I'm serious. I'd never been big on prayer, never really done it. Grown man, 4 years in the Marine Corps, and couldn't put together a sentence to God. So if that's you, and if you want to pray and you don't know what you're supposed to say or how to say it, stay with me because that's what we're going to do. And what's stopping you isn't what you think it is. Hey, y'all, my name's Christian Davis. I went from being a Marine to a disciple of Jesus Christ. Today, we're talking about prayer and how to pray when you don't have the words. Let me tell you where I was. I got out of the Marines. I took a blue collar job thinking it would give me that sense of camaraderie, that sense of purpose, that feeling of being a Marine without being a Marine, basically. But it didn't, not even a little bit. See, I used to serve something bigger than myself, and I got to shoot. I got to watch things get blown up, got to ride in helicopters, and get paid for doing it all. I mean, that was the greatest part about it. I got to do quote unquote, cool guy shit and get paid to do it. Then it got to a point where I was every day at work, I'd just be sitting there thinking, like, what am I doing here? So my depression and my drinking habits that I had while I was in the Marines, they followed me out and they got worse, especially the depression, which in return made the drinking get worse. Because my sense of purpose felt like it was gone. And so by the time my son was born, I was a full blown alcoholic at 22 years old. A few days before my son turned 1, I blacked out, and I put a pistol in my mouth in front of my wife. My brother in law came at the gun, and I placed him in a chokehold, and then released him, gave him the weapon, and from there I went into a tirade of screaming and cussing and just pure out anger, hurt. And it wasn't from any of those people in that house. That was the bad part. Eventually, the police came, took me to a friend's place. That was September 21st, 2022. And the next morning, I woke up at my friend's house, and somehow I remembered everything that I had done. I was taken out of a house full of violence and drugs and chaos when I was 5 years old. And that morning, I came to the realization that I had become the very thing that I was saved from at a very young age. Once I left my friend's house, I went over to my parents, me and my wife, and our 1 year old, almost one. And I got an ultimatum. Um, Not from my wife, but actually from my dad. My father knew he raised me better. He also knew that my wife and child deserved better. And he told me to either lose the drinking or lose your family. And my father gave me that ultimatum and then turned around and left me on his front porch by myself. And that's when I prayed. I prayed when there was nothing left to try. And here's what I want y'all to hear. I didn't pray a nice prayer. I didn't do the thing where you go, God, if you're listening, if you do X, Y, and Z, if you save me, then I'll believe in you. I never made a deal. I never tried to bargain with God. I never negotiated. I just emptied out my heart. And that's the whole thing about prayer. You just have to empty out your heart. I have not had a drop of alcohol since that day. That was almost 4 years ago, and my depression is gone. Not managed, gone. And I didn't do it with the right words. I did it with being honest, with true words. Now, what I found out later is what I stumbled into is exactly what Jesus taught. Matthew chapter 6, Jesus teaches on prayer. And when thou prayest, thou shalt not be as the hypocrites are, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and in the corners of the streets, that they may be seen of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. But thou, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret. And thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. So let's sit with that. Jesus gives two ways on how not to pray. One, performing. And two, using a bunch of words because you think volume gets God's attention. Which, in our case, that means the thing we're scared of when it comes to prayer is the thing that Jesus has already said doesn't matter. You're scared you're going to say it wrong. He's telling you the polished up version is wrong. So then in verse 8, Jesus says, for your Father knows what things you need of before you ask him. It's not like God sitting up there thinking, man, I had no idea that Christian was struggling. He watched the whole thing happen that night. And he also watched my house when I was 5. And he watched that gun when I was 24. So what's prayer for? Prayer is you opening the door. But God already knows what's inside. Prayer is you saying the hard part out loud. All right. So someone's probably still sitting there thinking, cool. Now, what do I say? Because I still don't know what to say. So in verses 9 through 14, 15, yep. Verses 9 through 15, still in Matthew chapter 6, Jesus gives us the pattern. It's not a magic script. It's a shape, 5 moves. 1, who he is, our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. You start by remembering who you're talking to. You're talking to God the Father. You're not talking to the universe. You're not talking to luck. You're talking to God the Father. And listen, I know some of y'all, the word Father might be a trigger and it might be a problem. I understand that a little more than you would think. But hold on, we'll come back to that later. 2, what he wants. Your kingdom come, your will be done. Before your list, you put his name over your situation. 3, what you need. Give us this day our daily bread. Today's bread. Not next year's, not tomorrow's, but today's bread. Because that's how a man or woman who is struggling prays one day at a time. 4, where you failed. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Name it out loud. And then 5, where you're weak. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Tell God where you're going to get hit before you get hit. So break down 5 things. Who he is, what he wants, what I need, where I failed, and where I'm weak. You can do that in 90 seconds in your truck, before you go into work, before your boots hit the ground on a job site. That's all you need, 90 seconds. Now, I know someone's sitting there thinking, I don't feel anything when I pray. Brother, I didn't either at first. But Romans 8, verse 26 tells us, for we know not what we ought should pray for as we ought, but the Spirit itself maketh intercession for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. Basically saying it's too deep for words. I mean, that's it. That's in the Bible. Too deep for words. God made a provision in Scripture for the prayer you can't turn into a sentence. Then again, in Psalms 62:8, pour out your heart before the Lord. God is a refuge for us. Pour it out, not present it. Don't perform it. Pour it out. Then let's go to Luke in chapter 18, verse 10 through 14. We're in the book of Luke. 2 men went up into the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and one a publican. Publican is a tax collector. This is a King James. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank thee that I am not as other men are, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this publican. I think I'm saying that right. And then he goes on to talk about how he fasts and everything. And the publican stood far off, would not lift up so much as his eyes unto heaven, but beat upon his chest, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. That's 7 words. God, be merciful to me, a sinner. And it's honesty in those 7 words as well. And from there, Jesus goes on to say that the Pharisee goes home without nothing, and that the tax collector went home feeling justified. Now, let me come back to what I was saying earlier. I know some of you, the word father may be a trigger or turning over something in you. My biological father was no good either. Granted, while I was taken out of a house when I was 5 years old and placed into foster care. Like I said, the house was full of drugs and violence. But after 2 years in foster care, at the age of 7, a man named Art Davis chose me, signed papers, gave me his last name, and most importantly, gave me his love, and made me a son who wasn't born his. And every good thing I know about being a man, I learned from him. So when Jesus says, pray to your father, I don't hear about my biological father. I don't think about that man. I think about the one who came and rescued me, and the one who truly loved me. And that's where God is. God is not in the house full of drugs and chaos and violence. God's in a house that's full of love and mercifulness. And He will be the one that pulls you out of that house as well. So if you're sitting there tonight wanting to talk to God with no words, you don't need them. You never did. You just need honesty. That's it. That's the requirement. Like I've stated, I'm not a polished preacher. I'm a man. I struggle every day. I'm conflicted every day. But I'm almost 4 years sober, and my depression is absolutely gone. It started because a broken man gave a broken prayer to an almighty, loving, merciful God. So if you're praying tonight, comment praying tonight and drop a comment letting me know. And if you're comfortable, drop your first name as well, and I will pray for you. I will read and probably like your comment. And if you're hesitant and don't know whether he's even listening, comment and tell me why. Like I said, it's probably a pretty good, decent reason why you think so. And I would like to talk to you, not at you. And most importantly, if no one has told you today, I love you and Jesus Christ loves you. Let's make heaven crowded.